All right, this is Fox and Friends First on this Friday morning. I'm Rob Schmidt.
And I'm Heather Childers. Thank you so much for starting your day with us. Congressman Steve Scalise, we'll begin there. He remains in critical condition in the hospital, but doctors say that he is improving after being shot in the hip. And the hopeful update as lawmakers come together in unity at the congressional baseball game.
Garrett Tenney live in Washington this morning with more on that and what we're now learning about the shooter. Good morning, Garrett.
Good morning, Rob and Heather. We were told by the hospital that House Majority Whip Steve Scalise is now recovering from yet another surgery that he underwent yesterday for some of his internal injuries and a broken bone in his leg, and he will probably need at least several more operations. The congressman from Louisiana was on the forefront of everybody's minds last night at the annual congressional baseball game for charity, though. Players on both teams wore LSU gear in his honor, and in a touching moment ahead of the game, Democrats and Republicans met around second base where Scalise was shot when he was playing on Wednesday during that practice. Now, President Trump, he was not at the game, but he did record a message praising lawmakers and fans for coming to the game and sending a message to the world.
By playing tonight, you are showing the world that we will not be intimidated by threats, acts of violence, or assaults on our democracy. On this special night, I leave you with three great American words that for generations have torn down barriers, built bridges of unity, and defied those who have sought to pull us apart. Ladies and gentlemen, let's play ball.
And one of the highlights of the game was the opening pitch. Capitol Hill police officer David Bailey, who was injured in Wednesday's shooting, surprised the crowd and took the field in crutches to throw out the opening pitch. First daughter Ivanka and her family were part of the record-breaking crowd at the game. Nearly 25,000 people came for the charity event, which is more than the average crowd size at a major league game. In the end, the Democrats won 11-2, but it really was a win for everyone. The two sides raised more than $1 million for charity, which is more than double the amount that they raised last year alone. The FBI's investigation into James Hodgkinson, the man behind Wednesday's shooting, is progressing as well, though. The FBI has learned the 66-year-old legally owned the pistol and rifle used in the attack, and the man's wife told reporters yesterday that they had separated earlier this year and that he had told her he was going to D.C. to lobby to change the tax laws. Robin, Heather?
What a sight that was last night, though.
Yeah, it was something special.
Yeah.
All right, Garrett, thanks so much.
Thanks, Garrett. Well, House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, though, going off on Republicans in the wake of the congressional baseball shooting. The California Democrat responding to the possibility that the GOP could blame the attack on hateful rhetoric from the left.
How dare they say such a thing? How dare they? This sick individual does something despicable. And it was horrible what he did, hateful. But for them to all of a sudden be sanctimonious as if they never seen such a thing before. And I don't even want to go into the President of the United States, but in terms of some of the language that he has used.
Well, the gunman made several anti-President Trump posts on social media, and he was a staunch Bernie Sanders reporter. Fox News contributor Charles Krauthammer, meantime, sounding off, saying what we need to know right now is not more finger-pointing, but a de-escalation of political hostility.
Look, this is a reflex. I see it among Democrats. It is true to some extent among Republicans. This sort of the vitriol in our politics is not unilateral. If you're a Democrat, you ought to have at least the decency and a Democratic leader to wait a while before leveling accusations. If that language weren't so extreme, we would have the beginning of a de-escalation, and that's what we need.
President Trump slamming the Russia investigation, taking to Twitter to question why he's being probed while Hillary Clinton's links to the country are not. One of the tweets read, Crooked H destroyed phones with hammer, bleached emails, and had husband meet with AG, Attorney General, days before she was cleared, and they talk about obstruction? This comes a day after a Washington Post report claiming special counsel Robert Mueller is investigating the president for obstruction of justice for firing FBI Director James Comey. And as as we wait for confirmation on that investigation, the Senate Judiciary Committee opening their own probe into Comey's termination. They are looking to determine whether the Trump administration had any improper interference with the FBI. They will also look into Obama's Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, and whether she influenced the Clinton email investigation. If Comey faces trouble from the Trump administration, he still does have some options, though. Did you hear this? Russian President Vladimir Putin is now offering Comey asylum.
And speaking of Russia, to this Fox News alert, while you were sleeping, Russia taking credit for killing the leader of ISIS. The country's defense ministry claims that Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi died in an airstrike in the Syrian city of Raqqa late last month. According to Russia, they also killed 30 ISIS commanders and 300 fighters who were gathered for a meeting.
We certainly hope that's true. All right, the father of the American student freed by North Korea is slamming the Obama administration, holding them partly responsible for his son's current condition.
And doctors say that Otto Warmbier is now suffering from extensive brain tissue loss. Jackie Ibanez joins us now with the latest details. This was really heartbreaking yesterday.
Yeah, it's really disturbing. Well, Rob and Heather, it's been 3 days since American college student Otto Warmbier arrived home after being released by North Korea. The Rogue Nation claims he contracted botulism more than a year ago, but doctors caring for him say there's no evidence to back that up. The 22-year-old's neurological condition now described as, quote, a state of unresponsive wakefulness.
He shows no signs of understanding language. He has not engaged in any purposeful movements or behaviors. Extensive loss of brain tissue in all regions of the brain.
Otto's father, Fred Warmbier, wearing the same tan jacket right there that his son wore to court in North Korea last year. He was sentenced to 15 years hard labor for stealing a propaganda poster. Warmbier condemning the Rogue Nation for returning his son in this state.
I would like to highlight this morning the bittersweet feeling that my family has. Relief that Otto is now home in the arms of those who love him. And anger that he was so brutally treated for so long.
Warmbier's father also calling out former President Obama for not doing enough to secure his release.
Do I think the past administration could have done more? I think the results speak for themselves. We're also thankful to Rex Tillerson and to President Trump. They wanted Otto home, and I believe, Cindy and I believe they made this happen. So we're thankful for that.
Right now, doctors still don't know the cause or circumstances of Otto's condition or if he will recover. Just such a sad story, and prayers out to the Warmbiers this morning.
Complete nightmare.
Yeah. And like you were saying, Jackie, you could see he was already having trouble way back, 17 months ago when he was forced to make that admission.
Yeah. All right.
Disturbing.
Thank you, Jackie. All right, in just a few hours, the president expected to unveil a new policy in Miami, rolling back Obama-era policies with Cuba. Commercial flights and cruises to the island will still be allowed, but travel restrictions could be tightened. A senior administration official says the president is trying to block business deals with Havana's military in hopes of cutting off money to the oppressive Cuban regime and sending some of that money to the people of Cuba who need it more.
Big announcement today. Well, the death toll is rising as we get our first look inside that London tower, gutted by an inferno. Shocking photos show windows blown out and rubble scattered where at least 17 people were killed. These harrowing images highlighting the challenges that firefighters face trying to save those trapped inside. And listen to this. We're learning that one hero mom took action herself, flooding her 11th floor apartment by overflowing the bathtub, keeping the room damp until help arrived. Well, it is feared that the death toll, though, could rise above 100 as dozens of people remain unaccounted for.
All right, the TSA testing a 3D scanner to inspect carry-on bags, a move that they hope will improve their ability to detect bombs and maybe even shorten security lines, which would be nice. The new machines give security screeners a 3D view of bags that can be rotated to ensure there are no threats inside. It could potentially eliminate the need to remove liquids or keep them at the 3 or 4 ounces, whatever it is. And laptops from carry-on bags, you could bring those again. Right now, the scanners are only being tested in Phoenix, but hopefully they work. That'd be wonderful. All right, a Fox Business Alert: Wells Fargo under fire yet again. The bank facing accusations of making unauthorized charges to customers' mortgages, according to lawsuits. The bank reduced customers' monthly mortgage payments without their consent, forcing their borrowers into bankruptcy in some cases. The bank has strongly denied these allegations, saying the modifications were clearly stated in letters that they sent to mortgage holders.
So we're going to keep on business for a moment. Another business alert. Thousands of vehicles being pulled off the streets because the airbag could unexpectedly go off in your face. That's not good.
Yeah, that's not good at all. Lauren Simonetti from our sister network Fox Business here with what you need to know before you leave the house, before you jump in the car.
Yeah.
Lauren.
Good morning and happy Friday. Fiat Chrysler recalling almost 300,000 Dodge Grand Caravan minivans model years 2011 and 12 because of a potential wiring short circuit. That can lead the driver's side airbags to inadvertently deploy, the issue causing 8 people to get hurt. Well, trouble on the roads and in the skies. The worst airline, Spirit. A new survey says passengers complaining most about legroom, or we should say lack of it, followed by fees. The next worst airline is United. At the top of the list, Southwest and JetBlue. And what a feat. Netflix now has 2 million more subscribers than cable TV providers do. In the first 3 months of the year, Netflix boasting almost 51 million customers. Cable companies had almost 49 million, marking the very first time that Netflix surpassed cable as more cost-conscious customers cut the cord. Finally, Twitter is going to look a little bit different when you log on today. There are some changes to the settings, the shape of the icons, and the layout. Your profile moves to a side navigation tab, and there will be 4 main tabs at screen bottom. The whole point, Twitter becomes faster, easier to use with a more uniform experience on different platforms. I'll send it back to you.
Okay.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thanks so much.
Well, look who's standing outside, and it's time for our Friday concert series. Yes.
Yes, it is Friday, and we have Charlie Daniels here, so no excuses. Both of you have to be down here. Starts at 6 a.m., sponsored by Keurig, and we've got Famous Dave's here. Let's take a look at the forecast, all right? If you're coming down here to 48th and 6th, there is a chance later on this morning for a chance of rain. Let's take a look at your forecast. There is Weather 8 and your summer concert series. Right now, clear skies. We could see a few showers, and it's going to be cool, so keep an eye on that. That's because we have the potential for rain not only today but through the weekend for the Northeast, back towards the Mid-Atlantic and the Midwest. Not a total washout, but we are expecting more rain showers in the forecast this weekend. A full update on your 5-day forecast coming up at the bottom of the hour. Meantime, Charlie Daniels is going to be warming up here. Guys, back to you.
Charlie Daniels.
Get your boots on.
All right. Candace, thanks so much.
Well, the time now is 12 minutes after the top of the hour. And President Trump following through on yet another campaign promise, the Obama-era program that the administration just scrapped to better secure our borders.
And no gender, no problem. The state now offering a non-gender option for your driver's license.
Seems bizarre. And giving away our tactics to terrorists. The NYPD set to reveal its anti-terror playbook to the public. Why the city's finest are calling that move insane. Welcome back. The Trump administration following through on another campaign promise, cracking down on illegal immigrants. At the Department of Homeland Security ending the Deferred Action for Parents of Americans program. It was introduced during the Obama era, but it stalled due to a series of legal battles before it could be enacted, and would have offered deportation protection to millions of illegal parents of U.S. citizens. And more than 100 volunteers in Denver are looking out for illegal immigrants by actually giving them a heads up on ICE raids. The 24-hour Colorado Rapid Response Network allows illegals to talk to people who will confirm if there is an ICE raid happening in the area. If there is one, a trained observer is sent to their location to document the interaction, along with a team of lawyers to assist possible detainees. The network is privately funded through several state organizations. Rob?
Okay, thanks, Heather. The NYPD could soon be forced to reveal its anti-terror tactics. The City Council introducing a bill that would require the police department to issue reports on what kind of surveillance they use, reports that could be seen by the public. The NYPD calls this idea for this bill insane, saying it helps attackers, terrorists, evade police. So should the department really open its anti-terror playbook to the public and let everybody see how they keep us safe? Here to weigh in on this, former NYPD lieutenant and Army veteran, Dr. Darren Porcher. Doctor, thank you so much for coming in this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Good to see you
It's
again.
always a pleasure.
It's been, we've had a nice run here in New York City, knock on wood. It's been 16 years since 9/11. Do you feel that we're a little bit too complacent, that this idea could even gain any traction at all, to just open us up and show everybody how it is that we're keeping people safe and give an advantage, I think a lot of officers say, to people trying to hurt us?
Well, the city council has had a recalcitrant relationship with the NYPD, and this is something that's been going on and on for years now. But we have to take in consideration we have two types of threats. We have the general threat, whereas we traditionally see officers with heavy weapons in places like Times Square, and that's a general omnipresence, so to speak. But when we have specific threats, we don't want to tip our hand as law enforcement to the public, such as if there's a propensity for a dirty bomb or something to that effect being ignited. We don't want to let the public know that magnetometers will be at that location, because the key is to catch that person. So when we go back to the seismic shift in policing dating back to 9/11, we've thwarted numerous terrorist attacks here in New York City, and we really have to give credit and salute the members of the NYPD and law enforcement on a national level.
Right, and I was just speaking to DHS Secretary John Kelly a couple of weeks ago, and he said if you knew the kind, a very good man, and if you knew the kind of threats that we face in this country and the chatter that he hears, he said you'd be afraid to leave the house.
You wouldn't sleep at night.
Yeah.
And as a prior Army vet, I'm a strong proponent in securing the republic, and we have to go back to the social contract. We as citizens afford government the ability to take care of us. In return, we submit some levels of rights. We allow the government to provide this blanket of security, and that's what the NYPD is providing to citizens here in New York, as true with Secretary Kelly, Secretary Kelly, for providing the security for us as a nation.
Yeah, I will say that Mayor de Blasio, it appears to be, from what I read in the Post, is not for this plan. He thinks it's not a good idea. The two council members that thought it up are both Democrats and don't have any prior history in law enforcement, really don't understand, I think officers would argue, and the NYPD would argue, they don't understand the threats that we face.
Absolutely. When we refer to those two city councilmen, we have Dan Garodnick and Vanessa Gibson. Neither one of them have a background in law enforcement or policing, so I find it very difficult for these individuals to present or introduce this as a fact pattern that the NYPD should tip its hand.
All right. Well, I walk the streets and I ride the subway, and I certainly hope we can keep us safe, and I thank you so much for coming in this morning.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it, Doctor. All right. Heather, over to you.
And the time now is 20 minutes after the top of the hour. The New York Times determined to find political balance following the Alexandria shooting, even if it meant reviving an old lie and laying the blame on Sarah Palin. But she just fired back. Carly Shimkus is here with that up next. Hi, Carly.
Well, the New York Times determined to find political balance following the Alexandria shooting, even if it meant reviving an old lie and laying the blame on Sarah Palin.
And Carly Shimkus with Fox News Headlines 24/7. Sirius XM 115 is here with how she has just fired back, right?
That's absolutely right. Congress is experiencing a bit of bipartisanship after Wednesday's shooting. Well, not so much over at the New York Times. Now, the New York Times printed an editorial baselessly blaming Sarah Palin for the 2011 shooting of Gabby Giffords. Now, in this opinion piece, they talk about this now debunked theory that a list of Obamacare supporters put forth by Palin's PAC inspired the shooter, where Sarah Palin slammed the Times in a Facebook post. Look at what she said. She said, "I'd hope the media had collectively matured since the last attack on a representative when media coverage spewed blatant lies about who was to blame. There's been no improvement. The New York Times has gotten worse." Well, the Times now says, yeah, we screwed up. They issued a correction, saying an editorial on Thursday about the shooting of Representative Steve Scalise incorrectly stated that a link existed between political rhetoric and the 2011 shooting of Representative Gabby Giffords. In fact, no such link was established. So, guys, can Sarah Palin sue for libel? Well, in a Twitter post, she actually says she is talking to lawyers.
Don't mess with Sarah Palin.
Don't mess with Sarah Palin. I think that's the takeaway with this whole thing.
And something that we really would like to see in the wake of what happened this week with the shooting, the congressional shooting, hopefully less political rhetoric, less violent rhetoric.
Yeah, violent rhetoric. That's absolutely right. And somebody who's known for that is Ted Nugent. He's this rocker best known for sometimes violent verbal attacks on Democrats. Well, now he says he's done with all of that. Take a listen.
My wife has convinced me that I just can't use those harsh terms. I encourage even my friends/enemy on the left in the Democrat and liberal world that we have got to be civil to each other.
So a huge change for Ted Nugent, and people on social media are pretty happy about it. They're kind of proud. Richard says, good on you, man. People can disagree politically without being hateful to each other. More people on both sides need to do the same. And then take a look at this tweet coming in. Says, I like it. Let's disagree without over-the-top violent anger. We can do that. And then another Twitter post on the subject says, never thought I'd utter these words, but way to go, Ted Nugent. And I like the fact that his wife talks some sense into him. Isn't that always the case, Heather?
Absolutely. Got to listen to your wife. Yeah. So the Time Warner CEO is saying that they're not backing out?
Yeah, so Time Warner Cable says they will not drop their support of New York's Public Theater. Now, if you remember, New York's Public Theater is the theater group that is putting on this play of Julius Caesar where they have a Trump-like character that they kill on stage. Well, the president of Time Warner Cable, the CEO rather, says the killing of Julius Caesar itself raises very important points about how that did not work out well. Nor did it accomplish the end of those senators who did kill Caesar. Well, a lot of people are really, really angry with Time Warner Cable. One tweet coming in says, Time Warner Cable dropped the play inciting violence. It's not a core value of the company. Butchering Shakespeare for political means is not art. So, you know, a lot of other companies said that they're done with this theater group. Time Warner Cable, though, they're sticking to it.
Right. I know Shannon Bream was out for a run in Central Park, and she said it was packed.
Yeah, I saw that, too. Wow.
Well,
it's a shame, right?
It really is.
It is a shame. But if you don't like Time Warner, I have Verizon Fios. It's way better.
There you go. You heard it here, guys.
All right, Charlie, thanks so much.
Thanks, Charlie. Well, the time now is about 27 minutes after the top of the hour, and a pair of escaped inmates who murdered their prison guards just caught. Meet the man who held them at gunpoint until police arrived.
Plus, our All-American Summer Concert Series rolls on. Charlie Daniels performs live right here on the Plaza. I'm Rob Schmidt. Happy Friday. It's 5:31 here on the East Coast. Congressman Steve Scalise is still in critical condition, but doctors say he is improving after being shot in the hip. This hopeful update as lawmakers come together in unity at the congressional baseball game.
Garrett Tenney's live for us in Washington, D.C. with more on that and what we are now learning about the shooter. Good morning, Garrett.
Heather and Rob, good morning to you. A law enforcement official tells Fox News that investigators believe the gunman did act alone and did not have any outside help with this shooting. The FBI has learned that the pistol and rifle used in the attack were legally owned by the shooter. And yesterday, the man's wife told reporters they had separated earlier this year, but that he had told her he was going to D.C. to lobby to change the tax laws. Now, several of the victims from Wednesday's shooting had a message of their own last night, though, and attended the annual congressional baseball game to show that they would not be intimidated.
Time kind of stood still after that first crack of the rifle, and somebody said run, and I ran as far away from the shooter as I could, ran to the right field, corner of the right field, got down on the ground because there was nowhere for me to go. Then he turned his sights to me and started shooting at me. Everything started popping around me. I got struck in the leg, and at that point I decided I wasn't going to be a sitting duck for this guy.
And there was a touching moment ahead of the game when both teams, Democrats and Republicans, came together for a word of prayer. And while the president was not at the game, he did send this message.
On this special night, I leave you with three great American words that for generations have torn down barriers, built bridges of unity, and defied those who have sought to pull us apart. Ladies and gentlemen, let's play ball.
First daughter Ivanka Trump and her family attended the game, and one of the highlights was the opening pitch. Capitol Hill police officer David Bailey, who was injured in Wednesday's shooting, surprised the crowd and took the field in crutches to throw out the opening pitch. In the end, the Democrats won 11-2, but this game broke records and was a win for everyone. More than 25,000 people attended, and more than $1 million was raised for charity. House Majority Whip Steve Scalise was on everyone's mind last night as well. We are told by the hospital that he is now recovering from another surgery that he underwent yesterday for some of his internal injuries and a broken bone in his leg, and that he will still need several more operations. And our thoughts and prayers continue to be with him and his family.
Yeah.
Heather and Rob.
Certainly do.
Absolutely.
All right. Garrett, thanks so much.
Well, meantime, the president and First Lady making a ceremonial visit to witness Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch make his official rise to the bench. Chief Justice Roberts administering the oath to Gorsuch, which comes more than 2 months after his swearing in. He now formally fills the vacancy left by the late Justice Antonin Scalia. Gorsuch reestablishes a conservative majority on the Supreme Court.
Maybe the best story of the morning. These two picked the wrong guy to mess with. A brave homeowner catches a pair of dangerous escaped prisoners and holds them at gunpoint until police arrive. Look at this. Donnie Rowe and Ricky DuBose busted trying to steal a car near Nashville, Tennessee. They've been on the run since Tuesday. We've been reporting this. They're accused of escaping a prison bus in Georgia and killing 2 corrections officers with their own guns. The dangerous pair had been serving time for armed robbery, but it looks like they'll now face murder charges, and they are caught.
Yeah. Well, stick with me on this one. Starting next month, you won't need to pick a gender to apply for an Oregon driver's license. The state becoming the first to include a not specified option on DMV applications. So instead of an M or an F on a state-issued ID, those people will have instead an X.
Well, there you go. All right, Los Angeles becomes Gotham City to honor a fallen superhero. Hundreds of people watching as city officials switched on the bat signal.
Yeah, the famed yellow oval, you see it there with the bat silhouette glowing at City Hall in honor of the late Batman actor Adam West. His wife and children were in attendance. Pretty cool.
Yeah, West, best known for playing the Caped Crusader in the 1960s TV series, died last week. He was 88 years old, and I read up on the life that he led.
You did?
He certainly lived his life, I can say that much. He was a wild guy back in the 60s.
The one and only original Batman.
The original.
Can't be replaced. And you know who else can't be replaced? Janice Dean.
Aww.
Yeah,
but
never.
only if she keeps it dry for like 2 more hours, right?
I knew there was a catch.
There's going to be a catch, yeah.
Let's take a look at it. Current temperature is all right. It's cooler than average across the Northeast, and we're going to deal with unsettled weather for much of the eastern third of the country, not only today, but through the weekend, through Father's Day weekend. We are hoping that these showers and thunderstorms stay away from our summer concert series. I'm going to see what I can do. But we also have the potential for stronger storms, including severe weather across the Midwest, the Plain States, with large hail, damaging winds, and even tornadoes. So that's going to be a concern through this evening. Quick forecast across the Southwest. Very hot temperatures. We're dealing with extreme heat here, high heat warnings, and then all along the East Coast, unsettled weather. So showers, thunderstorms, hit or miss for much of the weekend. So just keep that in mind. And real quick, I want to point out already June, hurricane season underway, and we are watching this area of disturbed weather in the Gulf of Mexico potentially developing in the next 5 days. Busy in the Fox News Extreme Weather Center. Back to you.
So early for this talk
Yes,
already.
it is.
All right, Janice, thanks so much.
You got it.
Well, it's now 20 minutes until the top of the hour, and the father of the American student freed from North Korea, did you hear him? Well, he's now slamming the Obama administration for not doing enough to free his son.
Do I think the past administration could have done more? I think the results speak for themselves.
So what does this mean for relations with the rogue nation going forward? Rebecca Heinrichs is here up next.
Also, a 4th of July celebration canceled in a major city because one person doesn't like the president. We're serious.
I like
Stay
that
tuned.
outfit, though. Well, this morning, the father of the American student Otto Warmbier, who was just freed by North Korea, is calling out former President Obama for not doing enough.
We received a very nice phone call from President Trump, who told us that Secretary of State Tillerson worked hard to help bring Otto home. We are extremely grateful for their efforts and concern. Do I think the past administration could have done more? I think the results speak for themselves.
Well, there you have it. So what does this mean for our relations with North Korea going forward? Rebecca Heinrichs is a Hudson Institute National Security Fellow and Foreign Policy Advisor to Congressman Trent Franks, and she joins us now. Rebecca, thanks so much for coming in. They send this poor kid back in a coma. They did God knows what to him. This is hardly a gesture of good faith, I would think, right?
Oh, no. What the North Koreans want to reestablish communications with the United States. But in the past, when there have been U.S. hostages, they've come back alive. The North Koreans typically do not physically harm them in this way, although they do endure psychological torture, that sort of thing. So the fact that Otto came back in a coma is not going to bode well for the North Koreans. We just got to figure out at this point how he got this in this state, and it really is a shame, and it's not going to do any favors for the North Korean regime.
And of course, you were referencing back in 2009, right, with former President Clinton, President Bill Clinton.
Yeah, he was former Clinton at the time. President Obama was in the White House, and President Clinton was able to help go to North Korea and secure the release of 2 American prisoners. And then again, we had another American prisoner released in 2014. So we have had some success in the past, but the fact that Otto came back in such bad shape, there are a lot of questions about what the North Korean regime was doing. Why didn't it release Otto to us once he went into a coma? Why did they keep him there for so long?
Well, you could tell that he was having problems way back at the very beginning when they brought him in and he was forced to make that confession.
It was a mess.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. The North Korean regime does not like its human rights abuses exposed, and so I think what the Trump administration is going to do is make sure that this was not a humanitarian gesture. We have to make that clear. The North Korean regime is probably the most repressive regime in the world, and so it has a terrible record on this. And again, the big problem we have right now with North Korea is its human rights problems, but it's its nuclear missile program, and this is certainly not going to help us move in the direction of securing some diplomatic channels or that sort of thing with the North Koreans.
Right. Well, what's always driven me crazy is we've dealt with this nation and with this dictator as if they're rational people, and as if Kim Jong-un, I think, is the least rational, much less so than his father. I mean, he's a psychopath. Why do we bargain with them? I mean, and do you think this new administration is going to deal with them the way that I think a lot of Americans think they should be dealt with?
Well, it is interesting that the Trump administration was able to secure Otto's release so quickly into its administration, and I think what that tells us too is the North Koreans don't do anything out of the kindness of their hearts. They do it because they think it's in their own interests, and so I think the North Koreans are taking the Trump administration more seriously. You're right. Negotiations, diplomacy in the past has not worked with the regime. They will not get rid of their nuclear program, and so we're left with coercion and force as options if we cannot get the Chinese to actually, really turn the screws on the North Koreans, because without China's trade, North Korea has nothing.
Yeah. The problem, though, also, as you referenced earlier, is their nuclear capabilities. I mean, that you have to consider that before you do anything.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. I mean, that's why no American tourist should be going to North Korea. And your heart just goes out to Otto's family that he was there and that he was lured there by this Chinese tourist company. No American should go there, because right now what the Trump administration needs to do is really ensure that the North Koreans do not get the capability to target American citizens with a nuclear capability. That has got to be our first and foremost priority.
And they released the kid in a coma while also threatening to nuke New York City and South Korea. So, what a joke. All right, Rebecca, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks.
Okay, time now to check in with our friends over at Fox and Friends.
Yeah, Todd Pyro, you were at a cozy corner, actually called that the Cozy Corner in Miami Springs, Florida, and you're having some breakfast with some of our friends, right?
Heather and Rob, this is awesome. We're having breakfast with friends, like you said, here in Miami Springs, Florida. The president about to speak later on today about changes in the Cuban policy. We have Ben, we have Linda. We want you to come on down here, have a little pancake, have a little egg and bacon, and also have some of this Cuban toast. I don't know what's in it, but we're going to try it in a little bit. Fox and Friends at the top of the hour.